Yeah, there's little like sassy little animals.
Are they sassy?
Yeah, I feel like they're like spitting at people. And
Welcome to the Generation Now podcast. My name is Josh. Joined with me is, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Tahlia.
I am Elijah.
Elijah is an intern here at Living Word. Tahlia is, describe what you do. You do a lot of different things around here, but what is your official title if you have one?
Yeah, I don't even know what my official title is.
Really? We have some fact checkers that can look that up for us.
You could call me a few different things, I suppose, but I work in the youth ministry and I work with volunteers and events and admin and obviously the youth. And then I work at a care and counseling area. So I meet with congregation members and staff members for a variety of reasons.
A variety of reasons. It's very specific and very helpful. So you have a master's degree from Bethel in counseling?
Yes.
Right? Like, what's the official degree called?
Counseling psychology.
Counseling psychology.
You are
okay.
correct.
So we brought in an expert today to have some conversations. Elijah's an expert too. He just doesn't have the fancy degree yet. Although in May, you'll have a little certificate for the internship. We'll make sure you get a certificate.
Okay.
So I don't know what's more impressive, a certificate from the internship or a master's degree from Bethel University.
To answer.
I would say they're both really good.
Oh, yeah.
They're both very good.
For sure.
So let's start with some fun. Let's do icebreaker questions. We like to do icebreaker questions. I know. So the first one we'll do is the classic, which you've done it before, but our audience listening may not know how you would feel. But the classic is, if you were a potato, how would you like to be cooked?
Yeah. It's just such a hard question,
Is it though?
It is, because there's a lot of nuances to this.
There is a lot of nuances.
You can really take this to a lot of different places. And
it says a lot about you. It's not a superficial answer. Like, what you say deep.
Everyone's gonna
know me. They're gonna
on my answer. You know what? And I feel like it changes by the day, honestly.
You're one of them. It feels sometimes.
Yeah. Today I would answer a curly fry.
A curly fry?
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah.
Just a little fun.
Yeah, you're a little bit fun, is that
Yeah. You can't get them everywhere.
Yeah.
I really do that.
You like that?
Yeah.
For her, you think she's a little bit fun? A little bit of a curly fry?
You better say yes.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
What about you, Elijah? What would you say?
I'd say like a normal fry, just really hot, steaming.
Okay, hot and fresh?
Yeah, like a McDonald's
almost burn
fry.
your mouth.
Okay.
McDonald's
when you
fry?
said that, that's what I pictured was a McDonald's fry.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they usually have fresh fries. You know who has good fries is Wendy's, but only if they're fresh. Yeah, and they're never fresh.
I don't think I've ever been there, to be honest.
So that was
you've never even been to Wendy's?
I don't think so. I don't think I've ever been.
There's one just down the road here in Brooklyn Park.
We have to take these
go
to
sometime.
a few different.
We should. We're gonna do like a tour of the Twin Cities.
Yeah. Fast food,
budget friendly. Only ones that we can afford. Wendy's, McDonald's, Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Just the ones that we can afford to take you guys to. But no, Wendy's has really good fries when they're fresh. They're just never fresh.
Is that your answer?
Sure, I'll make it my answer.
You were going to say
because then it wasn't going to be my answer, but I think for time's sake, I'm not going to go on to something else. I'll just stick with Wendy's. Although now I'm talking as long as I would have had I said something else.
That kind of worked against you.
But if you ever get Wendy's fries, make sure they're actually fresh.
I mean, yeah, I probably won't do that.
Yeah, like McDonald's fries. McDonald's fries hold up better. I mean, I would never ask them to give me fresh fries because that's annoying when people do that.
Yep.
Sorry if you guys do that at all. I don't know. Elijah, do you do that? Do you ask for fresh fries?
I don't eat fast food much.
Good for you. Good for you. What do you eat, Elijah?
Except Chipotle.
Chipotle, okay.
Which is not really fast food.
Elevated.
Definitely better than a Wendy's or Taco Bell, for sure, as far as quality.
But you can't get fries,
of ingredients.
No. It doesn't really fit into this conversation.
No, it does not.
Nope.
Let me do one more icebreaker question.
Perfect.
And I'm sure you've done this one before because you've been to young adult stuff and we've talked before. If you could have a pocket-sized animal to bring with you everywhere you go, what would you bring?
I know my answer to this.
I think I know your answer too.
An alpaca.
An alpaca.
Yes.
Do you know what an alpaca is, Elijah?
I love alpacas.
Why an alpaca?
Because they got afros.
Because they got their little.
So cute. They're kind of funny.
Yeah?
There's little like sassy little animals.
Are they sassy?
Yeah, I feel like they're like spitting at people and
I guess. I don't know. I don't have a lot of alpaca experience.
llamas are, but they still do. I don't know. They're a little smaller than llamas.
Yeah.
I do like llamas, but alpacas are like
But alpacas
my favorite.
llamas don't have the hair, right? Like the cool, like,
Not
look
as-
like every
they
teenage
can.
boy right now.
They can, but yeah, alpacas.
Every teenage boy right now looks like an alpaca.
Yeah, pretty
With
much.
that, they all get their perms and stuff.
You're not wrong.
Which good for them.
You're not wrong.
Good for them. I'm happy for them.
Dude.
And I'm happy for you for the alpaca.
Yeah.
What about you, Elijah? What would you say?
I don't know if this is a real answer, but specifically Cuzco. It kind of gave me inspiration and
Yes.
like
Yeah, that's
specific.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
You know, him
So a
just
llama, but a
screaming in my
specific one.
pocket,
Yeah. No, he
complaining.
I don't
he
know
would
if
complain a lot.
I don't know if I can handle that, but
he would complain a lot.
But I see.
Yeah.
I see where you're going.
Yeah, I think it's a good answer. I think
About it.
as long as I can like just leave him in my office
Yeah.
for a little bit and walk away. Like I don't always want him in my pocket, but he'd
Yeah.
be fun to have around for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get serious.
Whoa.
Whoa,
Did you see that?
almost-
I caught it. That was pretty smooth.
Almost a huge,
But what was
huge
your
problem.
answer?
My answer would be probably an eagle or a hawk, some sort of bird.
In your pocket?
Yeah, because it would be productive. Because like if I needed them to like go get me some Cheetos, they could like fly, go grab the
So,
Cheetos
like a
and
pigeon.
come back. No, pigeons are stupid. Like
a
a
carrier
hawk.
pigeon.
No, like a hawk. I need something that can defend me too if I need it.
So would you have it in your
so
pocket?
Yeah.
Your pocket
Or, like,
size
sick
hawk
someone.
is gonna really defend you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, come at me and see what happens
Sorry,
when my
I
little
was gonna argue
pocket-sized
that no
hawk.
matter what, because I don't like birds.
Oh, that's true.
So-
exactly. So you would be afraid of my.
I would. I
Of
would
my
never
pocket-sized
I would
hawk.
not be here right now.
Yes.
No.
If I had a pocket-sized hawk, you would not
Definitely
be here.
not.
You would be too afraid.
Definitely.
All right. Well, now can we get serious now?
Sure.
Okay. So our topic today, we're going to talk about, since we have somebody with a master's degree and some of the internship
And a
degree,
master.
not there yet.
A master.
Yeah.
A master
It felt right.
and a master's degree.
Yeah.
Both equally qualified in their fields. We're talking about kind of mental health, self-care specifically. So how would you define that self-care? We hear that word, that phrase, I guess, thrown out a lot, especially now more, maybe after even 2020, maybe it got a little more common. How would you define that?
I would say, simply put, it's taking intentional actions for your health. So for like your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, if you wanted to equate it in spiritual terms, like spirit, soul, and body, doing intentional things to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Self-care.
I think that's a good definition. Do you agree, Elijah?
What?
Do you agree that was a good definition? Her answer?
I'm already
Okay.
boring
Okay.
him.
Elijah's falling asleep over there. That's all
I'm
right.
not.
I would never fall asleep while Tahlia's talking. That's just disrespectful. So, is it biblical though? Because in the Bible, we talk about being selfless and giving to others and caring more about others than our own well-being. Is it biblical? Is it scriptural? Is it something that Christians should do? Should we self-care? Is that important, or do we?
I think so.
Why?
I think so.
Why?
I think,
Let me edit my question. And why or why not? Let's expound a little bit.
yeah. Well, I think that God gave us ourselves, spirit, soul, and body to steward.
Yeah.
And talks about that. It talks about taking, our body as a temple and guard your heart, and a lot of mentions of things like that. And I think that that's instructing us to, in some way or another, take action to do those things, to do the best we can with what he's given us and who he's created us to be. And there's a lot of practical things too in the Bible. If you really look into it, Jesus took time away. Jesus was, you could argue that was self-care in that he would
Yeah.
withdraw and go spend time with the Lord and make sure that he was filled, so that he could go do his ministry. And yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
biblical.
You agree, Elijah?
Yeah, I think we ourselves should be in a good mindset to help other people.
Yeah.
I think that's very important, to pay attention to, making sure you're okay.
Yeah. Kind of like I've heard it like the airplane analogy, like put your mask on before helping somebody else with theirs. Like it's going to be a lot harder for us to help other people to do ministry if we're not taking care of ourselves spiritually, emotionally, right, as well. So why is it important then? We kind of answered that a little bit in that it's biblical, but why is that so important when you're, in ministry, maybe working at a church, or even not? Why is it important that you take care of yourself as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we did touch on it, but just, we can't, there are times where we're going to have to, we are called to put people ahead of ourselves, and there are times we're going to have to do things we don't want to or maybe aren't comfortable. And also, we can't give from an empty cup forever. It's just not sustainable. Yep. We are human. And so to be able to do what God has called us to do, we have to be mindful of how we're spending our time and how we're treating ourselves. It talks about do unto others as you do unto yourself. And so if we're putting all these other people in front of ourselves and treating them well and making sure they're taken care of, we should be doing the same for ourselves. Yeah,
the caveat to that is that you are also doing good to yourself, right? Do unto others as you would do unto you. You got to love yourself first. You have to take care of yourself to help others. If you're beating yourself down, don't also beat others down. It's not healthy for anyone.
And if you're not being mindful, eventually, especially if you're in a field where you're working with people a lot, or just personally you're with people a lot, it's very possible that you would burn out. We've heard that term a lot, but and if you do that, then we're kind of putting a stop on what our call is in that way. And so just being really mindful.
Yeah, you can tell me if this analogy makes sense or not. I just thought of it right now. It's either really, really good or just makes no sense. And I'll probably edit this, or maybe I'll just take it out if I don't like it. We'll decide. So if this is left in here, it's because I thought it was good enough to leave in there. But I think of when you talk about like burning out, we end up being not productive at all by the end of that. So I think of like a car taking the time to put gas in the car. Like you have to keep it running. There's maintenance that's required for a car. If you just run a car nonstop, eventually it's just going to die and then do nobody no good. And so we would need to do the same thing. Like we need to take care of ourselves if we're going to continue to do the things that God's called us to do. Right? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I thought you were going to go somewhere with sports, and I was like, I'm not sure.
It's not just sports. It's not just sports. I have other things in my head. It's mostly sports, but I have other things in my head.
But I would agree. Yeah, we have to be able to move forward and be able to do what he's called us to do. If we're looking at it in spiritual terms, I think there's practical things we can do to help ourselves and help others.
Yeah, what are some of those practical things maybe that we can do? Why don't we start with Elijah? What are some things that you do? You said that self-care is important, that it's biblical, it's something you do. What does it look like for you to have good self-care?
Confessions to make sure you're staying in the right mindset. Yeah. That's very important. That's all I can think of right now. Yeah. That's coming to mind.
No, that's good. Like biblical confessions about who you are in Christ, the promises of God for your life, that sort of stuff. Yeah, because it can be easy to look around you in the world we live in and get negative and get discouraged. Yeah. So when you can keep those things in front of you, I think that's great. Tahlia, what are some other things that we can do for self-care? Some
really
things that you do.
Individual. Yeah. I really do believe that. I think that a lot of times people hear the term self-care and they'll, think of like the cliche, like, oh, go take a bath or go get your nails done or go whatever it is. Well, that could be self-care. I think it can. It's also, it could be scheduling in time for yourself. If you know that you're a busy person and always with people, it could be making sure you're getting outside and getting fresh air, getting sleep. And it could be making sure you are being social if you're more on the opposite end of like you are by yourself a lot. Like it really is individual. I think we're all created so uniquely, and so we need different things that will fill up our cup. But the biggest thing is just being intentional about what that is for us and making sure we're taking the time.
Yeah, I think a big thing that I think can relate to all of us is just our schedule. I think that's one that all of us can probably work on, especially now we live in a world where you can be doing something all of the time, having your cell phone with you. You can be entertained, or you can be working nonstop. You can be communicating with people. So time for yourself, being intentional about going to bed on time, getting the sleep that you need. Those are things that kind of apply to everybody, not saying yes to everything. One of the things that I try to talk about with the interns that's important to me is just because you are free doesn't mean you're available, right? There are nights when someone's like, oh, well, are you free on a Thursday night? Like, technically I don't have anything on my schedule, but I've had a long week and I'm tired and I got to work in the morning. So no, I'm not available. I'm going to do what I need to do to recharge and rest for myself. But then also there's personal things that you can do. So I'll ask you that next, is like, what are some things that you do? You know, like for me, he's talking about being different for different people. For me, playing basketball, just getting shots up, just by myself. For me, that's such a way to take a break and kind of like not think about anything, or just kind of pray, or just kind of listen to music, just kind of step away from the day. In fact, during the day, you guys might see me, if you come down to the youth, might see me shooting hoops here, just because not as much anymore, but 2020, there's a lot going on. And so I would take a lot of breaks and just come down here and shoot hoops for 5 minutes. So something like that is something that helps me. So I think it's important to find like different things, right, that kind of recharge you. Or what are some things that you do personally, Tahlia?
Yeah, I mean, there are things that as a person enjoy. I like to read, go on walks with my dog, like things like that. But I mean, just two at the top of my head. But I also think it's important to mention, like, even for one person, those things could look different day to day. Like, for me, if I'm like doing something, if my work day is sitting at my computer all day and like looking at a screen and like really focusing on something, then I probably need to go home and like be away from my phone and might need to have a conversation with like a human, if that's how my day was in the office or whatever. But on the other side of that, if I'm like with people, talking to people all day or doing something really active, I might go home and take a few minutes just to like, I know maybe people have different opinions of this, but to like mindlessly scroll on my phone, or to turn, to not talk to people. Like it really does depend on like what the day looks like. And I think sometimes that's kind of hard to figure out for yourself. It's like, what is it that I need in this moment?
What do you need this day? Yeah, right now.
Because it can change, not just from person to person, but from like day to day. And so kind of figuring that out, it takes like intentionality to, I keep saying that, but to like learn about yourself and what that looks like for you. Because I think some people could say, oh, I just, I relaxed by like watching Netflix or whatever, and that's fine. But if that's all you're doing all the time, it's probably going to be like in a ditch over here. There might be days where you just need to think and do nothing. But then on the flip side of that, like, where are you at? Like, what does your soul need? What does your mind need? Yeah,
and TikTok or scrolling on your phone, Instagram, whatever, can get a bad rap, and it can be a problem.
Yes, definitely.
But there are times when for me, it's like I just try to be intentional. Like, okay, for right now, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to mindlessly scroll because I don't want to think about anything else.
Check out.
But it's being intentional about that. If I get in the habit of every day after work, I just scroll until I go to bed at night, that's probably a problem. Right. And I would also say finding things that you enjoy too. A lot of times I like things that recharge you. Like sometimes I just get so busy that I'm like, well, then I'm just not going to do anything. And I do nothing on the weekends, and I get
more
rest.
Tired,
but I don't you don't get like recharged. So like finding stuff that you like to do too, even though it might take a little more work to actually like get up and do it, but at least it's like kind of giving you some energy too. So anything else, Elijah, anything in your life? What are some things that maybe give you energy, or like at the end of a long, grueling day at the internship because it's so difficult? What do you...
Lately, I've been taking a lot more walks.
Yeah?
By myself, just in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
How middle of the night? Like you wake up at like,
not like direct
2 a.m. and you're like, oh, time to go for a walk.
It gets darker.
Take care of yourself.
Well, yeah, now it gets dark by 5.
It feels like the middle of the night at like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've been doing that.
Yeah.
Just kind of venting to God, just talking like out loud, my feelings, problems, or whatever.
Yeah.
Listening to music.
Yeah.
Is a big one for me. But yeah, I've been taking more naps because this internship is like
rigorous
insane sometimes.
Yeah, it's crazy. You got to get up here and be here by 8:30. Although you got a long drive.
I do have a long drive.
You do have a longer drive, so I'll give you
6.
that. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah, you write music too, right? Is that a way for you to kind of get some thoughts, some feelings out too?
As of lately, I haven't been writing much, but in the past, yes. Like, I've written a lot out, venting everything about how I feel, and then yeah, and does that help, or is that sometimes more draining? It definitely did help.
Yeah,
and still does.
It's like an outlet.
Yeah. I just think that's so cool that we're created unique and different things work for different people. Mm-hmm. That's why I always try to tell people, like, I can't list out, if you need self-care, you need to do this and this and this and this. There are some things, like we talked about, getting enough sleep or getting your schedule right, but you kind of have to know what works for you, and like you said, even in the moment,
right?
Like, it might be different day to day for sure. Yeah. Can you go too far with self-care? And I want to say that because I think it's great that I think we talk about mental health and self-care more than we ever have before, I think. But I feel like some people like kind of use that as an excuse, and maybe this is going to sound kind of harsh and mean, but like, or I think of the show Parks and Rec. If you guys watch that, don't watch it if you don't. I'm not technically promoting it, but if you watch it, like, they have like the treat yourself day, and they like go like spend as much money as they can at the mall or whatever. And so treat yourself is kind of like a big thing that people do. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to spend all my money. I'm going to do all this, or I'm tired. I've had a long day, so I'm just going to scroll on TikTok for the next 6 hours. Like, do you think that it can become a problem? And maybe, I don't know, I guess you have a degree, so maybe draw a line where it becomes a problem. You have a master's degree, so can you tell me?
Person to person?
No, you need to make a decision declaration right now for everyone. Where is that line?
It's like the first thing you learn is just not to do that.
Oh, okay. So, well, I don't have a master's degree, so I don't know that.
No, I think self-care and what it should be and what its actual definition is. Do I think it can go too far? No. If you take it and you are using it as a excuse, because like the examples you just gave, I'm scrolling for 6 hours, or I'm like eating terribly for months or whatever. It's like, someone could call that self-care, but are you actually taking care of yourself? No, you're not. But even going back to what you were saying at the beginning of, like, in the biblical sense of, we are called to love one another and like put ourselves or put other people first. And there are times to do that. And so we have to make sure we're not falling in the ditch. Like, well, I just have to take care of myself, because there are, like we were talking about, there are going to be times where we might not feel fully equipped or fully like at capacity to do something that God's calling us to do. And that's where we like step out in faith, Yeah. And it's a balance. So yes and no. Yes, what you're talking about, I do think people can use that as an excuse, or like even kind of like jumping to like a boundary. Like, boundaries are self-care, right? When we create boundaries for ourselves, that's important, that's necessary. And that's another thing where sometimes people can be like, well, it's my boundary, so I just like can't talk to you. Yeah. It's like, well, sometimes like you have to, like, and I'm not saying that that's a universal thing, but I do think we take these things that we're talking about a lot more, like, which is a great thing, and sometimes like go into the ditch with them. And it's like, well, I'm just taking care of myself. No, now we're kind of crossing into like being selfish. Or like unhealthy. And so just like being balanced. That balance. Which is not easy to do. No. Because I think of the same thing, like that idea of like, oh no, self-care boundary, I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm going to stick to myself and do my own thing. Well, it's like, well, no, God has called us to be in each other's lives. Like, someone might need something from me. I'm not going to turn away when they might need something because, self-care, sorry, I'm going to ignore you today. Like, that's not what we're supposed to do. Right. Or like, I had this plan, I needed to do this, but like something comes up that we're feeling God's impressing on us. I'm like, well, but this was my time. Like, it's like, you gotta be always sensitive to the Holy Spirit if you want to talk about it in those terms, but we can talk about that. We're in a church. No, I know. I'm just, we're kind of like going back and forth between all the things, but But
But I think that's important to do, though, because like you said in the beginning, we are a 3-part being, spirit, soul, and body. And I think a lot of times we, and you probably understand this better than most because you did get a master's degree from a Christian school. Obviously, you work at a church, but you also work in the counseling department. That idea of we think like, okay, this is church talk. So something's wrong, pray about it, read scriptures. This is, mental health space. So we do mental health exercises or different things. Or, physically, I need to, run more or eat better or whatever. And we, a lot of times, put them in separate categories. And we'll say, I'm having a conversation about mental health right now. I'm not having a spiritual conversation. Well, no, it's all intertwined. We are 3-part beings, for sure.
For sure. If there's something that you're doing that it's like, this is for my physical health, but it doesn't line up spiritually, then it's actually not. It's not. Or vice versa. Like, this is long term. At least I know there are always going to be like caveats to things. But if it's like, spiritually speaking, I have to do this, but the rest of your life is falling apart, then something's not right about that. Like it all has to kind of, in the long run, be finding that balance. And again, that's going to change. Like something in one season might work really well, and then another season might come and you might have to pivot. Like, now in this season I am working more, and so I need to be more mindful of my time, or vice versa. Like it's just really, again, being sensitive to where you're at and what the Holy Spirit's doing and how that looks. Yeah.
Do you agree, Elijah?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have any other thoughts or feelings, Elijah? Any final thoughts before we go?
Not really, no.
Yeah, you agree with Tahlia? She's smart?
Yeah, I believe her.
I believe her too.
Thanks,
do you have any final thoughts, Tahlia? Anything before we go? Anything you want to say?
No? I think if you're... I start no, and then I keep talking.
That's the polite thing to do. You say no, and then
I do. But actually, I do. I just think, again, it's learning about yourself and praying and figuring out what that looks like for you in different seasons, because it really is intentional. Again, I know I keep saying that, but what works for one person might not work for another. Like if I was just shooting hoops for an hour, I'd be really annoyed by the end of that. Like, and so
I am too if I miss a lot of the shots.
That's my point. But just really figuring that out and paying attention just over time, because it'll change, and you don't want to fall into that ditch either way. So
before we go, I don't know, we're talking about sports and Tahlia. This is one of my favorite Tahlia moments, I'm gonna say, and she got really nervous.
Oh boy.
It's fine, it's not a big deal. But this was a few years.
Started with sports. I'm like,
it was a few years ago during March Madness. I don't know if you remember this, but it was Princeton was a 15 seed, and they had this huge upset. And it was like the #1 story on SportsCenter everywhere. And Tahlia comes to work the next day wearing a Princeton sweatshirt. I was like, "You're a Princeton fan? Like that's so cool. Like, do you think?" And she's like, "I don't know. So I don't know what you're talking about." I was like,
got the sweatshirt.
It was like literally the biggest sports story.
I think the sweatshirt was
like of the month
got
at
it
the time.
From like Goodwill and gave it to me.
Yeah, and she's just like,
and I just liked it. I had no idea.
It just happened to be. Maybe you were listening to the Lord. The Holy Spirit told you wear this Princeton shirt to make Josh happy, because I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Yeah, it's a good shirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for watching, Tahlia. Elijah, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.